Hey everybody, and welcome into yet another build guide video. So my name's Ben Lee, welcome. I've got here my Meteor procking Firewall procking Meteor kind of build. Predominantly it's a Meteor build. It should be ridiculous crit damage straight off the bat. We've got some good mana sustain, we've got insane defenses, which I think I've kind of got an understanding now of what Sorc's going to be like at endgame, and having lots of defenses and having like one spender is kind of what I think meta's going to be. But let's get straight into it, shall we? We've got here's the Meteor Firewall build. So just coming straight in, let's just go for it, shall we? So 2 points into Firebolt. That's just to get us to the next set. Here we got Devastation. We don't need anything else, so we put 3 points into there for extra mana. Then we have to put another point in somewhere, so we'll get potential warding for a bit more defenses. So yeah, we're just kind of ignoring the first one. It's a shame there's no passives here, to be honest. Coming down, we are taking Flame Shield into the heal. We've got Teleport into the damage reduction. We're going to be picking up points in Glass Cannon. Hopefully we should be safe enough. This is a long range build rather than like my Charge Bolts build, which is a melee based one, like kind of shotgun. This is range, so we're going to take up Glass Cannon here for extra damage. Ice Armor coming in for the mana regen. We'll see if we need this or not. Might not need this. I might just be able to take the skill points out of this completely, and using the kind of a tip from Crypt that I've got is just to use an item that has plus to defensive skills and then just take this out completely and use Ice Armor at basic. It depends if we want this mana regen or not. Coming over again with Frost Nova, coming down to vulnerable, very kind of meta, and the standard 1 point elemental attunement for the lucky hit, kind of see if it works. This is a lucky hit build, so on that basis we're going to take the 3 points in precision magic. Then we're going to take the 1 point and align the elements. Again, we could move points over from here into this for higher defense. Mana shield when we spend 100 mana, and also protection as well, so when we're spamming these, which should be on quite a low cooldown, we've got a lot of cooldown reduction. Again, quite a meta thing at the moment. Even the game is not even released, it's basically you can see if you've done enough research like I have, you can see how it's going to go. So we've got the 2 points in protection here. Now we are doing Meteor, and we're coming down. Meteor into Meteor falls 30% faster would feel nicer, but we really want that immobilize. So we're going to be spamming Meteors as our main casting skill here. And then we're coming in for Pyromancy skills, deal increased damage while you are healthy. We should be healthy a lot of the time unless we just get absolutely slammed, but that's only if we really get surrounded, so we'll see with this. And then Devouring Blaze gives us 30% increased critical strike damage against burning enemies, and if they are immobilized, this bonus is increased times 75. So absolutely huge. One of the best passives that Sorc has is Devouring Blaze, and this is also why a lot of lightning builds are specking into like the Firebolt enchantment, and that's to be able to pick up things like this. So very, very strong, and that's why we're getting the immobilized there. Now we could go here and lucky hit. Your pyromancy skills have up to, I think, goes up with 15% chance to immobilize enemies. Chance is double while you are healthy, so you end up with a lucky hit chance and then a 30% chance. So that is something that we could do if we move some points around, but for the moment we've gone with this because ideally that would feel better, having the meteors fall faster. And then we've got Firewall. We're going to max out Firewall and come down to enemies continue burning for 3 seconds after leaving Firewall, because otherwise when things move around, having this one here is just a bit of a debate, really. They just move around, they come out the Firewall and it gets really burning. It's really annoying. So back on the skills here, we're using Firewall and we're using Meteor. So it's lucky hit chance to form Meteors, and then Meteors does burning and can spawn Firewalls and all this stuff. So this is kind of like the build we've got there, but let's just finish the rest of the skills down. We've got Inferno. That's just for big burn damage, but one of the most important things here is while Inferno is active, your pyromancy skills cost no mana. So that is 8 seconds where you can just spam Meteor. So humongous damage. There is an option here. You could take Deep Freeze. I feel like if you wanted a more defensive build, you could then go for the Deep Freeze option. And here as well, when Deep Freeze ends, then it reduces your cooldowns. I like this to be able to reduce these cooldowns, especially maybe if you're using like a two-hander, so you haven't got as much CDR from having a focus. But I'm going to go with Inferno. I'm going to try this out for like humongous burst damage. So I'm really excited about that. Then we got here, killing a burning enemy increases your mana regen. Don't know if we'll need a bit more points into this. And then we've got a point in Endless Pyre. So you deal increased burning damage to enemies for each second they remain burning. I like the idea of this, especially when you start getting a whole bunch of like Firewall procs going off. I like the idea of this and having more points in this. But to play it safer, I put more points in Warmth to keep us healthy. So if we don't need that late game, take them out, put them in something like Endless Pyre. So that there is a few things I said with these passives. There's a few things that we can fiddle with here and have a little look at. And then I've gone with the issues for ferocity, whatever. Your fire critical strike damage is increased by 25% against enemies above 50% life. And then your fire critical strike chance is increased by plus 5% when they go below life. And then killing an enemy with a critical strike grants both of these for 3 seconds. So being quite quick and going through a dungeon, being able to keep that buff up will be really strong for us. But one of the things that I'm really hoping for with this build is like the first part. Your fire critical strike damage is increased by 25% against enemies above 50% life. I'm really hoping that we can stack enough critical strike damage that we just basically one-shotting things. We've got some decent sized AoE as well, with like aspect of the shattering stars. So this one, meteors fall around Meteor, dealing fire damage on impact, and your meters additionally burn enemies they hit for X damage over X seconds. So having like more AoE from there. So you fire down a meteor, you're going to get lucky hit procs, and there's going to be burnings for lucky hit procs, which can proc Firewall. So each time an enemy takes burning damage, there's a chance that they'll spawn some firewalls. And then as well, we've got chance meteor. So you might find on like, you know, when the stars align with this build, you fire down a meteor, you've got extra meteors and stuff coming around it anyway. So you've got more AoE. Then you have another meteor come down and 2 firewalls spawn just from one cast of meteor. That's going to be hella cool. But let's go through the rest. So lucky hit chance when you've got a barrier with fortune. Disobedience, again, this is armor regeneration. It's basically best in slot. Meteor deals 35 to 50% increased critical strike damage against healthy targets. Free curses, this could be super important for our ability to fire down a meteor, it crit and one-shot everything. That's kind of the hopes I have for this. Then we have aspect of the protector. Damaging an elite enemy grants you a barrier just to keep us alive. You have 20% increased crowd control duration. While enemies are unstoppable, you deal 20 to 50% increased damage to them. You could swap this one out with like Ghost Walkers if you wanted more movement speed and phasing through enemies. Could be a nice one to have, but I want to try out this one. Just get that extra damage up against unstoppable enemies. Aspect of control, we're dealing more damage here to immobilize, stun, and froze enemies whenever we see an enemy as well. So we do immobilize here. This could be nice and we can keep staggering and stuff from this, but it's not a huge kind of CC build. We do have Frost Nova for our vulnerability. But aspect of control, from what we've seen in testing, is outrageously strong if you do manage to CC, or if you're in a group with someone who's got very high CC, then this could be insane. It could literally like 4 or 6 extra damage against like staggered bosses. So in the amulet, I've put core or mastery skills cast above 100 mana gain 20 to 40% increased critical strike chance. I'm really hoping that we can upkeep our mana enough, which we should be able to with the next 2 legendaries, these 2 here, to be able to keep ourselves above 100 mana basically at all times, so that we can just get this like 40%, which will be times 1.5 on an amulet. So 60% increased critical strike chance is what we're aiming for when we cast it above 100 mana, plus all of our crit chance of things from our items. That's going to stack up huge to basically make all of our meteors crit all the time, and then everything else, as you've seen, will give us insane crit damage to be able to just like one-shot things. So very hopeful for this one. Lucky hit, as we are lucky hit one here, so we've got Incendiary. Burning damage has a 5 to 10% chance to restore 10 mana, so we're just going to be getting mana back all the time from that one. And then using a cooldown restores mana, so Prodigies is going to be insane because we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cooldowns. So that's it for the equipment. With the Paragon board, I'm a big fan of 5 boards from what I've seen on Sorceress at the moment. Let's go through it. So starter board is amazing for int. So here we've got adept for every 5 intelligence. Mastery skills, and that's what we're using, is going to increase damage, so that's going to be insane. And also mastery skills have larger increased area, so as a starting board one, this is really amazing. I have gone up here for the non-physical damage These are points that you could, well, this point anyway, that you could take out and move somewhere else. But since we're there, we've taken it anyway. The next board, I've gone with Burning Instinct. I was conflicted with which way round I wanted to start with this board, but this is how I've ended up doing it. We've come up here for burning damage is increased by 40% of your critical strike damage. Of course, we're going to have really high critical strike damage. Further increased by 5% for every intelligence you have. So stacking intelligence for this build is also going to be really big. We're going to fire down meteors for like lots of instant damage. And remember, we can spam meteors like crazy for 8 seconds when our ultimate's up. And then we're going to be spawning firewalls, which is going to be doing burn damage. Our meteors do burn damage, so you can see how this is going to help us. Gone straight up the middle here for damage to burning enemies, damage to elites. I was tempted for this damage reduction here. If we find that we need to be more tanky, we can move this and go up this route here. And then in here, I've put in exploit. Every 5 dex purchase within range, we're going to be dealing damage to vulnerable, or increased damage to vulnerable. And this is a very high scaled. I think it's actually the highest scaling dex board that we have as a sorceress. So that goes in very well because, as you may have seen from my other videos, vulnerable is its own multiplier. It's not additive damage with like damage to close, damage to burning, damage to this. It's its own separate multiplier. So you always want to have builds and stack tons of vulnerable damage. One thing with this build is vulnerable uptime though. That comes with obviously with Frost Nova, but we should be able to, with all of our cooldown reduction on our gear, which I've got all listed, obviously linked down below, then we should be able to get the cooldowns down good enough, especially with having like extra like ranks in like Frost Nova skills and stuff. So yeah, we've got here for vulnerable damage, and then I've taken things like damage to burning enemies and then damage reduction from enemies that are burning. This board is fantastic for fire builds. If we just go up the top on here, I've come up and I've picked up extra maximum mana. We may not need this, but instead of having like mana on gear, I've picked up a couple more points of mana because we want to keep our mana above 100. Every time that might drop down, then we pop a cooldown, mana goes back up. Coming up, we've got Torch. So every 5 willpower purchase within range deals increased burning damage. So obviously against like bosses and stuff, with the meteors coming down, burning, spawning firewalls, then that's just gonna increase that burning damage, spamming the firewalls, increasing the burning damage, and you deal 2.5% increased damage per nearby burning enemy. So again, meteors with some good AoE with the lethal meteors that fall round it from the legendary aspect, Shattered Stars. Then yeah, that's gonna be quite nice for us. And then I've got here, there's a bit of resistance to things, but I came out for the willpower mainly. Coming down to the right hand board, we've got Enchantment Master. So on here, come straight down and in. I am tempted, I have been tempted to go and try out Enchantment Master, but with where I put my points, it's too far. It's too far of a stretch. So I've left that one for the moment because I would really like to be able to proc a bit more. But here we got non-physical damage, and then we got a bit more resistance, a little bit more tanky. But on this board here, we've got Tactician. So grant 240% bonus to rare nodes within range, but more importantly with this, like you deal 10% increased damage for 4 seconds after casting a defensive skill. We have 4, and the cooldowns are going to be low, so it's like a permanent 10% increased damage. And then yeah, 240% bonus to this is stacking intelligence, which is what we need, a bit of extra resistance as well, and then non-physical damage and more intelligence again, so stacking that. So they're nice buffs, but they're okay. They're nice buffs, they're okay. Frigid Fate. I can't get enough of this board. Even though I don't use, we're not using cold skills in this. It's just, wow, what a board, right? We've got vulnerable damage, damage reduction from vulnerable enemies, vulnerable damage over here. We've got vulnerable damage over here, reduced damage or damage reduction rather from vulnerable enemies over here, and then we've also got lucky hit chance, and I can't get enough of lucky hit builds. So that's what we've taken on the side there. This was a few extra points I had. The glyph we've got is for every 5 intelligence purchases within range, we're going to be dealing 9.6% increased non-physical damage, and for each skill equipped on your enchantment slot, gain 13.3% resistance. So we're not going to need any fire resistance on gear or anything like that. We're going to have loads of that. So against any fire enemies, we're sorted. But it's also like, this is a very, very high int board. So we're going to be scaling up that damage, that non-physical damage, very high with this glyph. And yeah, that's the board. And that's the build. So you've got 3 casts of Meteor. Meteors are going to proc firewalls. Firewalls are going to start burning, and burning's going to be doing like procs for meteors. And yeah, it's going to be like, you know, if the stars aligned, you fire down a meteor and then just loads of stuff just happens. I'm really excited for it. And we have good mana sustain as well. So that's the build, guys. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. And remember to like and sub for more D4 content. And remember as well, you can catch me live at twitch.tv/Bentley_TV. We will be live for the launch, obviously, like everybody else. Can't wait to see you. I'll see you in game. It's released today. Can't wait. Peace out.